While recording, mixing and mastering on tape with analog mixing consoles were once the norm, they have become increasingly less common. Despite digital advancements empowering millions to create music, the legacy of tape and full analog workflows remains precious. So much that with our digital audio softwares, we constantly chase the analog warmth, using fancy EQs to emulate vintage consoles that are decades old. Isn't that fascinating? But are you really aware of what is involved in digitizing a sound, especially the impact of sampling rate on both dynamics and frequency reproduction? Digital audio is a way of representing sound using a series of dots showing the evolution of a wave's amplitude over time, which are then interpreted to interpolate the missing values between each point to reconstruct the true wave. The sampling frequency determines how often we pick up these measurements. We can now take a closer look at the difference between digital and analog. Digital is a series of values at a certain distance from each other, spaced by a fixed frequency. So if no process interprets these points and translates them into analog waves, the result is a staircase representation of sound. Analog, on the other hand, has an infinite number of points, so that if we zoom to infinity, there will always be a more and more precise value. With sampling frequency being the rate our converters capture points from an analog wave, what happens if the signal's frequency is higher? Imagine trying to sample a 20 kHz signal at 16.025 kHz. The converter wouldn't capture enough points to represent the wave accurately. Instead, reconstructing the signal from these samples would result in a flat line, may I say silence. It's why Nyquist's theorem states that the sampling frequency must be at least twice the highest frequency in the signal to perfectly reconstruct it from digital samples. We can also ask how the sampling frequency affects transients, crucial for sound perception. When transients are too fast for the sampling rate, their conversion becomes increasingly inaccurate as the sampling frequency decreases. Despite the constantly pushed back limits of digital technology, understanding the fundamentals of analog sound remains vital. This isn't about digital versus analog. Both have their place and have its own way to be fascinating. But digital is ultimately a translation, an interpretation, a deduction of analog sound, so it's essential to be aware of its limits if we want to make the most of it.